I didn't discover Danny Cass. I just signed his first contract. I drove out with Todd Richards, rode with Josh Dirksen, Jamie Lynn. I was like, I had a photo published in Thrasher when I was like 12 or 13. My checks were signed by Gert Boyle. I pissed the bed twice. I get to be extra creative. We're going to build a snowboard company out of Salem, Oregon, of all places. The image was epic. Scraped together all my little bits of money that Frontside 360 could get me. It's a really nice closet. He just made himself a bed in there. Be nice to everybody.
1, 2, 3, 4.
He's no one, she's no one, we're no one.
We're live
All right.
at the Nemo Co-Pro podcast with our friend Chris Owen.
Is this brought to you by GoPro?
That's what we have to think about that name. No, it's Co-Pro. Co-Pro
Gotcha.
meaning collective progression. It's one
like
of our
that.
core values here at Nemo Design, and it's
like
like
that.
things are better when we work together. But again, in Co-Pro podcast with Chris Owen today, I'm going to connect the dots. We're going to take you all the way to the Olympics. We're going to talk about how that connects to Native American culture, Nikon cameras, couches, and even once upon a time, professional snowboarder Chris Owen.
It's all in there somewhere.
But again, I think when I think about our relationship too, again, it's connecting here in Oregon. First time we got to meet was on one of these shoots for this lady, and you were on a snowboarding program. With Gert Boyle and their new entree into snowboarding, which was the
Convert. That was a big deal. Yeah. My checks from Convert were signed by Gert Boyle, not by some person in accounts payable. What I'm imagining, a gigantic checkbook, and she would have Marty Shepard, myself, the whole team would just have their checks written out for whatever, and she would sign them all.
Did you get to meet Gert Boyle?
No, I met her son.
Tim.
Yeah, Tim, but Gert was not really around the office. This is when they were still like over here, kind of by the Rose Garden, and they weren't out in Beaverton yet, and she wasn't really around the office so much.
Who was on that team?
God, it's gonna kill me because of last names, but Mia, whose last name is escaping me, Scotty, Marty Shepard, myself. I think we're the only four on the team. And I'm really blown it by not remembering the last names right now.
Well, it's weird. I think of Marty Shepard. I think of fishing, but
100%. He was the first person I ever saw. Like when we were that young, like 20, 21, he was like so into fly fishing, and he would fish out the backyard. He lived up in this place in Welch's, and they would just fish out there, walk up the river from their place. And who the hell does this? We're like in our 20s. Let's go do something fun and
Something
radical,
punk rock.
not old guy stuff. But he loves it.
he knows
He's
what
the best.
He was. I think we did another trip too with Janet and Chris out in Eastern
Tonawauwa.
Oregon, Tonawauwa.
That was really weird. I was here for some contest. I drove out with Todd Richards for this contest up at Meadows, and you and I somehow ended up in the car on the way to Salem, and you're like, yeah, you're going with me to Eastern Oregon. And I'm like, I haven't heard a damn thing about this. This is way before cell phones. I wasn't checking emails. There was no way to communicate this. It was probably on my answering machine back in Colorado. But yeah, and then you told me, like, yeah, you're going on this trip. You, Mark Eggy, Jeff Fulton, and we're going out east. And I think it was you and Billy Miller. We did a Transworld trip out there, and
Yep.
yeah, managed to jump over a bush or two and, milk my minimal number of tricks into a decent Transworld article.
Make it as a professional snowboarder.
Yeah, man. Yeah, professional as it can be for less than working full time at a Starbucks over the course of the year.
But if you could imagine, it's like we're putting snowboards on horse packs and climbing up through the mountains. And did you get a nice horse, or did you get a mean horse that tried to knock you off?
I was on a nice horse, but I don't like horses at all. I fell off one at summer camp when I was a kid. Like somebody just didn't put the saddle on right or whatever. So I was gripped the whole time. So I actually opted for the snowmobile the day two.
Bingo.
And it was way easier than dealing with the horses. So
Snow machines.
yeah.
Got to have them. Yeah, that was a fun trip. And then fast forward again here at Nemo Design, Chris's son worked for us for a lot of years.
Oh yeah. You told me that.
Yeah. So it
that's
came full
insane.
circle. It's like,
Yeah.
And he's really good at what he's doing, and he's got his freelance gig going on now and doing great art shows here in Portland. So paying it all forward. It's great.
Yeah.
And then what's exciting too, again, it's like, as we look on the screen here, I got a picture of a guy throwing a backside air. What do we see? What are you describing here?
It's Rob Morrow being Rob Morrow. That was probably one of the first times everyone saw Rob as Morrow. I remember the summer before, the whole Sims team basically got fired, and Rob had been riding for Sims before that. And I think everybody was scrambling, trying to figure out what they were going to do next. I don't think Rob even thought twice about it. It was like, oh, we're just going to go do this thing that we want to do, and we're going to build a snowboard company out of Salem, Oregon, of all places. So,
And they did.
And they did it.
And they did.
Yeah.
And they brought up, Brad Stewart, Mickey Keller, Scott Klum up from the Sims team. And then on that new and emerging team that they had, they grabbed Todd Richards and Shannon Dunn.
Yeah,
And
Jana Mayan.
Jana came on. So yeah, they had, again, it's sort of first
Brandon.
team rider driven company
Yep.
at its time and its peak. And so what a great time in snowboarding. Absolutely.
Yep.
And then you got to ride there for a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. A couple of years later was when I got on. Actually, Todd and your ex-wife are who got me on Morrow in the first place. Liz Graves was the team manager at the time. Todd and I we weren't roommates, but we basically I would stay with him when I was in Boulder. We rode together at Vail every day. I was getting boards from LibTech, but it was like one of those things like, yeah, you can have another board. We're just not going to pay for you to go to World Juniors, or we're not going to pay for this. We're not going to pay for that. And I was like, I thought my career was somewhere else. I was working full time as an apprentice chef in the mountains in Vail. And Todd's like, hey, we'll just get you on this. I baked Liz and Mickey some cookies, got on the team, got a travel budget, incentives, all the stuff. And it was I rode for Morrow for 3.5 years until the day Mickey offered me a job there. And it happened to be the day earlier in the day I blew my knee out. I didn't know it yet. It was underneath the table at a Thai restaurant, and it was basically swelling to the size of a little mini basketball. And she was like, hey, how would you like to be team manager? I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember the injury. I also remember Mickey and Liz really appreciated you because you were professional. You'd actually do the work, make it easy for them. Didn't give them a hard time.
Yeah.
You were a pleasure to work with. So the brown nosing worked.
Yeah. But I think it wasn't just like the injury. It was also like, I knew like coming up, I was just like, I rode with Todd. I rode with Josh Dirksen, Jamie Lynn. I was like, they were all way better than me. Like, it was like, it felt like I was like, I'm stealing money. All I know how to do is frontside 360, backside 180. All these other guys are doing sevens. I didn't deserve a paycheck. So I'm like, let's go work for the money. And it's probably going to be more lucrative for me in the long run.
Oh yeah. There's always those forks in the road. And it's interesting how it kind of started to shape where you ended up going in your career as well. But think about back in those times. Again, it's like what's interesting is kind of trying to connect the dots and getting to where you're going today. And there's always a mentor. Can you pick in that time era a mentor that you thought about or was really inspirational to helping you get to where you wanted to go?
Well, you're shooting for yourself.
Oh, no, not me. No, not even. It's like,
you were.
No.
So I'd been into photography when I was really young. And a matter of fact, I had a photo published in Thrasher when I was like 12 or 13 of a local kid here when they did like a Portland story. And so I was always like into it, had printed my own stuff. And my dad bought me a darkroom when I was in high school. But then once I was out of the house, it's like that stuff's expensive. It's like really hard to, it's really hard to do. And I remember talking to you about it on the chairlift once. And you basically convinced me, hey, if you buy a camera body and a lens and a bag to carry it all in, you'll never have to worry about any of the extra stuff. I've got it. That's basically how you sold me on it. It wasn't, you were like, I think you loaned me a 16 millimeter lens for 3 years. I mean, it was like, you're like, I've got extras of these, and you just handed it out. But the criteria was I had to shoot Nikon, because you're like, oh yeah, you're like, Bud Fawcett shoots Canon. You can't be shooting Canon.
Well, you want free gear, you shoot the Nikon because that's who was taking care of me. He's like, yeah. Right?
Yeah. And so, but it was that was a beginning moment for me. Yeah. And then actually when you shifted gears and started working for Morrow, I got a lot more of that mentorship out of you. That was a pretty big one. There was a lot of different people that were impacting me in different ways. Like even like the chef I worked for in Vail or whatever, but like, and even team managers I had before I took the team manager job is like, it wasn't always the good ones, but it was like, there were the good ones and the bad ones. Learn as much as you can from the bad decisions people are making, and try not to make those same mistakes. Take some of the good things from the good people and then try to make it your own somehow. I really think like, Neil Morrow is the one who was the one who dragged me into the building at Morrow when I got one of my first injuries, because I broke my foot, and he was like, we'll keep paying you as a snowboarder, but you just need to come in and work on some projects. We've got to get our money's worth out of you. So, he brought me in that time. And then that, ultimately that led to me working there full time. And then, we had a great scene. Rob Morrow is another person like I always looked up to, and he and I are basically.
Oh, you look down on him.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's much shorter than me, but he's a couple years older. So
right, I got the short joke in there, Rob.
Well, the cool thing is he's just as wide as he is tall. He's a perfect square.
SpongeBob, Rob Morrow.
But I think that. That for that period in life, I mean, you played a big part in the direction I was going, especially because you were always down to have like the more the merrier. It was like one of those like, hey, we're doing photo shoots here. We only have this action's only going to happen this one time. The more angles we have on it, the better. So it was like, and it was the first time I ever saw that. Like we treated every single thing like it was a giant catalog shoot, even if it was small. It'd be like we'd hire a photographer, we'd have you, and we'd have me, and we'd have like triple angles. And sometimes we'd hire, photo editors of magazines because we knew that was going to be a perfect partnership for us to have. It's like, oh, how do you get the cover of Stick magazine? You hire Kevin Zacher, the photo editor, who's also a fantastic shooter. So it's like, all right, let's hire that guy, and then let's sell him on this new wacky idea that you came up with. And it's like, next thing you know, that's on the cover. It's not just our ad campaign. It's like, yeah, let's get it on the cover. Let's hire the same guy, but a German guy with like Wolfgang. Wolfgang Helmut Wahl. Yep. Yeah, let's hire Helmut Wahl to come and do photo shoots, and that gets us in with MBM. Like it was a good way to get into stuff, especially like back then, because there was so much. Snowboarding was trying to steal from skateboarding and surfing, where it was like lots of gatekeeping and lots of other weird political bullshit, which I think skateboarding left in its past long before surfing and snowboarding did. Surfing might still have that. I don't know. I think surfing's for photographers. I'm sure it's just a race to your computer to send images to people because everyone's standing in the same fucking place.
So now I've got you on the trajectory going from the humble beginnings of Milwaukee, a little bit of skateboard DNA, dad supporting you by getting you a dark room, got your first print into Thrasher, and then started parlaying things into snowboarding, making some great connections along the way. Was able to milk a frontside 3 into a career and get introduced to the Morrow family. And cookies work. You want to get
if there's one lesson to be learned here, cookies work.
And making food for folks never hurts either. And that kind of brings it up to the idea of 98, Japan, the Olympics.
Gosh, 1998, I was young. I had 18 athletes that were going to potentially be at the Olympics over the course of many different countries. I believe the only American we had was Todd. And Todd was absolutely the favorite to win the Olympics.
No question.
He had won every single contest, and it was mostly him and Terry all the time. Everyone knew Terry wasn't going to do the Olympics, so it was like, Todd's got this, no problem. My voicemail at work was full every single day. I was getting between 200 and 500 emails a day. My cell phone was always ringing. I pissed my pants. I pissed the bed twice.
No, literally?
Literally.
Come on.
I was so stressed out. I was absolutely spun out. I was like 24 years old with all this responsibility on my shoulders for $32,000 a year. Damn. And I was like, I was gripped. And then we go to Japan, and like, in my opinion, do we have any fact checking on this? Is there like, did Todd end up in 8th or 9th?
16th.
Day 16th.
I think so.
Todd's run was a number 2 run.
At the
He
beginning.
didn't win,
Yeah.
but it was a number 2 or number 3 run. I believe that at the time he was starting his run with a frontside 9, which made it so much more difficult than most people's runs. And he definitely put one solid run together, and I think he got judged poorly on that solid run. And again, I could be wrong, but I think it was going to be the best run that got you there, not a combined score.
Yep. Well, you forgot to pay the judges, Chris. 24-year-old. We didn't 32K. Come on.
Also, to be fair, my credit card bounced paying for the hotel in Nagano too. So
What?
So it might not have been me that forgot to pay the judges. It might have been that Morrow didn't give me enough money to pay off the judges.
Damn it.
Yeah, because I couldn't pay we had to do a wire transfer to pay for the hotel there. But again, that was great thinking again, when the way that we operated in Nagano was let's open the doors for everyone. It was like, all right, cool. We're going to rent an entire hotel, small hotel. We rented an entire hotel. We had, and this was like, you and Marty Kerrigan with a little bit of input from me. It was like, this is this plan. We're going to have all the Transworld photographers stay with us. We had Mark Gallup. Did Billy Miller stay with us? There were so many different people like that just stayed with us because nobody had a place to stay over there. And we were like a 10-minute drive from the half pipe. And, we just had our own little thing. Actually, Paul Farrell slept in my closet in Nagano.
So that one of the owners of
he was the team manager at the time. He runs Bent Metal now, I believe. But the Pharaoh, and because there's no way he was getting an affordable room anywhere close to the snowboarding. But he stayed, those big fancy like sliding, it's a really nice closet. He just made himself a bed in there. It's where they keep all the bedding and stuff for the tatami mats. It was a really nice setup he had.
Yeah,
we stuffed him in there, and and it was great. That was the cool setup. We had it going. Also we thought we were going to have the number 1 guy.
Right.
And I wish it would have worked out that way because there was no one more deserving that year than Todd. He should have won it. Mm-hmm. It's probably the only thing that he didn't accomplish in all of his snowboarding career was a win like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that he rode as bad as his placing put him. So
I remember him falling. He choked a little bit with all the pressure that was mounting. First time, all the camera lenses are pointed at you. I do remember technology for the first time watching one of the UPI wire Sports Illustrated shooters literally had an umbrella because it was snowing so hard, an assistant on a laptop with a cell phone shoots a digital picture. Mm-hmm. I was shooting film at the time. And then it took 3 hours to get into town. And by the time you got there, the front page was the shot of Ross Rebegliati going through a gate. And my mind had just exploded. I'm like, how did they get a picture from the mountain to the newsprint out to the street in 3 hours? Like, I was just like, oh.
I remember going into those press tents because we were, depending on whether you wanted to sign up with Kodak or Fuji, you could go get free film. They gave you as much free film as you needed, and they would process it, and you could scan it right there in their press center. But they also had, for the big newspaper and the big sports guys, those cameras, the digital cameras there. I think they were 2 megapixel cameras. Yep. They cost about $25,000. Helmut Vol bought one.
No way.
And shot with it. I think he convinced the magazine to buy it for him. But it was like, it was the future, obviously. Ended up being that way. But shit, everybody's phone can take a better picture than that was on the front of that newspaper that
2
day.
meg or whatever, but
yeah, I think that
was the future, man.
It was. I remember tripping out on that, like just like how fast everything was. I was tripping on how fast they could process our film for us, and then scan it and send it to people. I was thinking like, well, I don't need any of this for 4 more months.
Yeah,
like I don't need it. It's like I'm glad all you guys have stuff to do with it tomorrow. I'll just take this home with me.
Amazing. What a time and what an event to live through and have been part of and been contributed to. So that was amazing. It sounds like you learned a bunch. And then is there any life lessons that you wish you hadn't learned, but you did?
Out of that experience?
Or maybe that era even.
Well, I can pinpoint one that weekend. I think like into January is always the Mount Baker Bank Slalom. And I think that we went to the Bank Slalom just a few weeks before Nagano. And we were snowboarding in the rain. It was like Dave Sipniewski, Tyler Lepore, Terry Hawkinson, Billy Anderson, and myself. Snowboarding in the pissing rain. We were soaked. 5 hours, having a blast. I watched Lepore almost kill one of the greatest snowboarders of all time that day in Terrier. He almost landed on his head. Pissing rain, miserable, horrible, horrible day that we should have all felt gross, but we were just pissing ourselves laughing. We were just going all nuts. Went and had a good dinner at Milano's that night after in Glacier. And then a couple weeks later, I'm standing next to the half pipe. It's pissing rain in Nagano, which is supposed to be the biggest snowboard event to date.
Right.
And I have a photo of Jeff Galbraith in an American flag hat with water dripping down the front of it. And I'm like, this is fucking miserable compared to that awesome day we had at Baker a couple weeks ago. Same weather. And just comparing event to event, Mount Baker Bank Slalom, better than the Olympics.
There you go.
Yeah.
You heard it live. And Baker is still going.
Yeah, it's still
as long
going.
as Mother Nature allows, you keep it going. And then there's
Olympics are also still going, though.
They are
still going.
They're still going. Seem to be doing all right.
Yeah.
Morrow goes public.
Mm-hmm.
Any lessons there?
Yeah, it was almost worse than the cars.
What do you mean? Snowboard investments aren't good to
know.
buy on Wall Street? What are you talking
I don't
about?
remember what the IPO was, but I think I was into it, whatever, 17, 18 bucks a share. I scraped together all my little bits of money that Frontside 360 could get me, and then bought a bunch of stock. It seemed to be doing pretty well for a while. I didn't buy any of the Oakley stock that skyrocketed right away. But then once it was down around $2-3, I was dumping more money into it, hoping I could hedge my bets.
Double, triple.
And and then it didn't really work out. And then we got sold out from under all of us. And I think was the CEO Blair at the time?
Yep. Well,
When
Blair
we
shut it
sold-
down, but yeah.
Yeah. Well,
David Callop was the guy who took it public.
Yeah, Callop took us public.
Yeah.
But I just mean later on, like after like the stock had actually just shit the bed and we sold the K2.
Yep.
He wouldn't lay me off. So I was the last employee in the building
way.
with him. You guys were already in Portland.
Yeah.
And everybody else was just not there. We were in that big ass building. The warehouse was empty and he would not lay me off. He's like, I got to keep you around here for I don't know what reasons. And then eventually I got a great offer from our friend Helmut to take his place as the photo editor of MBM Snowboard Mag in Munich, Germany. So I did that one, packed up. My ex-wife and I packed up and moved to Germany and got an apartment, started working on the mag, and it was super fun. It was way more political than I had ever seen because I didn't really understand how bad the European mags were as far as like the heavy-handedness of the advertisers, because there was always jokes with Transworld and Snowboarder over here where it was like, oh yeah, Burton just sends envelopes full of money down there. That's why they get all their riders in there. And I'm more of a realist than that. I'm like, oh, well, the fact that they have 80 of the best snowboarders in the world on their team and hire 4 or 5 of the best photographers ever to follow those guys around, that's why they're in the mag all the time. I don't think it's the envelopes full of money. Sure, they bought that opening spread, but there's lots of companies who shit the bed and never got any coverage in there, and they were buying expensive ads too. And I was only over there for 6 or 7 months, and I was snowboarding with Dirksen in Switzerland. I was doing actually a Morrow shoot for K2
Yep.
in Switzerland, and so Tyler and Josh flew over to Europe. We went snowboarding, and then and Eric Linus, and we were shooting. And Josh is like, man, because I just want to change my flight and go home. And I'm like, you know what? Me too.
Whoa.
And so I just I changed my flight for to 6 weeks later. And I was like, I went in the next day to the office. I'm like, yeah, I quit. See you guys later.
Wow.
And I got offered a job at Mervyn Manufacturing, kind of all in that same window.
Yep.
And the the publisher of the mag got really upset and tried to get heavy-handed with me. I'm like, listen, I'm going to work in this industry. Like we don't need to be enemies right now because I might have some say into who advertises with you in the future.
Ooh.
And I was right, because then eventually after going to Mervyn, I ended up with Quicksilver and Mervyn, and I definitely cut some checks to MBM over those years.
Yeah,
So,
that's funny how that works.
yeah.
But again, it's like what I'm also seeing is a lot of experience, right? We're watching a young man mature, learn how to negotiate, take a lifelong risk to do this Sprechen Sie Deutsch and jump across the pond,
Yep.
and try this experience in Germany. It sounds like you said, "Hey, this isn't working," cut bait, and came back and started again.
Yeah. That was, that's like, yeah, ultimately I always want to do new fun stuff. I mean, it's like, that's part of it. You want to have life experiences. I'd move back to Europe. I just wouldn't move to Munich. So,
Right.
But yeah, it was like, yeah, it's the thing. It's like, I think it was always worth it to try
But
new
let me
stuff.
tap on something there though too. Is like there's this interesting creativity part, and then risk taking just with the physical riding piece of it. But again, go into why. What makes you tick that way? That this is actually fun as opposed to life debilitating.
Well, the comfort zone thing. It's like I think every single, I don't know, it doesn't matter whether you read like self-help books or you listen to athletes talk about it or coaches or anything. It's like that you want to get just far enough outside your comfort zone that you're getting something out of it. That you're actually like learning a lesson or getting, it's not like, hey, I'm going to go jump off a 10-story building onto concrete because I think I can. It's more like, no, it's like I've worked my way up to know that I can get away with this amount of risk. And I know that if I do it right, I'm going to be fine. It's, it's the baby steps thing. It's like, you're just like, all right, I jumped off of, a block this high. I know I can pretty much do it double and be fine. But then when you get to that 10-story building, it's just insanity. It's like, doesn't work. And then you have to dial it back in, because right now my knees can't handle any of that jumping. Can't jump off anything this high anymore.
That's the beauty of aging and wisdom. But again, there's like, where did you get the confidence to just say, yeah, I'm going to try this?
I think it all comes from skateboarding. Like, I think that skateboarding teaches lessons that nobody realizes they learn. And it's like, it's the ultimate piece of get back on the horse. It's what you do. You just get right back on it, and you're constantly learning lessons, and you're learning how to be a resilient person, and you're learning how to do things that are. When I was 14, I think I had a cast on this arm for 2 years because I broke it, and then I broke it again, and then it's like, and then it was easier to just have the cast on it than it was to not have the cast on it because I might break it again. So just because it wasn't quite healed up, and I've got a couple of metal plates in it, but that's the thing is, I think it's like the thrill outweighed the risk. And I think that those lessons that I learned through rolling around on a little toy are some of the best lessons I've ever learned.
I like those grit stories. And now you ended up back in the States, at
first it was just Mervyn. It was just LibTech and GNU. that was initially was hired to run the team over there. And they were in kind of a rebuild. They had just sold to Quicksilver, some injuries and some different things that were happening on their team that were, like Jamie, his back was totally blown out when I got hired. Late 90s. He was just messed up. Like
This is Jamie Lynn.
Yeah, Jamie Lynn. Sorry. So he was their accidental money tree at one point. He's this great snowboarder, and then they were trying to figure out like, well, how are we going to move forward? And then my initial thing was like, oh, let's hire all those Morrow dudes. Let's go talk to Dirksen and let's go talk to Lepore.
Yeah.
Let's steal all those people from there. Turns out K2's contracts were very binding, so we didn't get any of those guys. But we did manage to get like a bunch of people on our boards that were trying to figure things out. For a while, we had UC Oxonen on there. We had Ville Uliluoma. Then they eventually signed deals with other companies and basically made Joey Maguire's board into their board. But
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
The dimensions on Joey's 158 were across snowboarding for a while. Everybody copied them. But, so, it was kind of like a fun, like little rebuilding time. And then at that time, I think that the guy who managed all of the purchased entities at Quicksilver, he wasn't happy with how their team was being run, and he liked what I was doing at Mervyn. So when they let their guy go, he asked me if I wanted to just take on both responsibilities, which
For
was
32K.
Sorry?
For 32K.
No, he paid me really well. This was the 32K was in Morrow.
I know, I'm kidding.
No, they probably paid me better than they should have. And that's might be why they were $1 billion company when I worked for them, and now they're not. But but they basically, it was just like, let's consolidate as much as we can and try to let's try to work as one company rather than separate companies. And that meant like a lot of stuff, like let's get people on both brands, and that led to like signing Danny Cass. So Danny Cass was on GNU and Quicksilver. And that wasn't some, like, I didn't discover Danny Cass. I just signed his first contract. He was both brands. We had him on GNU and we had him on Quicksilver. And that was the first person that we had that was like a real crossover. Oh, I take that back. Before I started working for Quick, they had Joey McGuire on there as well. So he had quit Special Blend to go ride for Quick. So I started working for them, and it was actually kind of nice because my boss was the CFO and not the VP of marketing. It was really nice. So I reported directly to the CFO since he handled all of the like exterior businesses. So it made my life at Quicksilver very easy. I didn't have to know anything about what they were doing on the surf side of business. I just focused on the snow stuff, and we had an awesome team there. And then I'm gonna say it was 2001, and I was struggling with the idea that like I could be a full-time photographer and make X number of dollars, or I could be splitting this. And they're both 2 full-time jobs. I mean, I'm like basically winter sports brand manager over here of all of Quicksilver winter sports. So it was a lot of work. And I was like, you know what I really enjoy? Taking pictures of snowboarding way more than I want to look at spreadsheets and
No, really?
and get on the phone all day. So I just, and also, it was also like a thing, and this wasn't the linchpin in it, but Tim Osler broke his neck in the Park City, Utah half pipe.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a Quicksilver athlete. And I was like, I already had one foot out the door at the time. So it definitely wasn't like the pivotal moment, but it was also like, all right, well, Tim and Joey are my 2 favorite people to travel with, and Brandon Ruff and Jessica Dalpiaz. Those 4 I really love traveling with. And so I'm like, well, I don't know if I don't really want to fly around the world with all these other guys right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just cash out and go shoot photos.
But what's interesting though is going from, working with the CFO of a multi-million-dollar company like Quicksilver, and then actually taking the creative route and realizing that was more important to you.
Oh, yeah.
To go and do what felt more in line with your values or what your vision of what success looks like.
Yeah.
And so now you've jumped back into shooting with a Nikon.
Yeah. Jumped back into shooting with a Nikon. But I was also still shooting film. I held on to that for so long. I was like, man, I don't trust these digital images. This is
Science fiction.
This is magic right now.
Oh my
This is not
God.
real. But I was also like lugging around a medium format Hasselblad. I was with a fisheye lens that felt like 2 extra pounds in my bag, and I was carrying 70 pounds worth of crap in my bag, plus 100 rolls of film because these psychos are all doing sequence. You have to shoot a sequence, and they're all 29 frames long and 36 frames of film. You're throwing away 6 or 7 frames every roll and just swapping stuff out constantly.
So you by yourself were supporting Kodak.
I tried to keep
Kodak in business.
I tried to keep Kodak
Fuji
in business for as long as I could, but it didn't work. But yeah, and actually like the first trip I ever shot all digital on was Nick Hamilton convinced me to only take a digital camera to Russia because film was going to get ruined by their sketchy X-ray machines.
Okay.
So we went to Russia and I shot everything digitally and I was very happy with it.
Oh boy.
But then my dilemma was, yeah, but the Hasselblad shoots so much better photos than all these. And this Hasselblad X-Pan that I have shoots differently than these. So I'll shoot digital, but then I'm going to carry all this other bullshit around with me. I was really holding on to the dream, Trev.
Trying to be creative and make your own unique look. I get it. It's admirable.
Yeah. And that's, man, if I could rewind all the way back to the beginning, that was one of the things that working with you actually gave me was the ability to be creative with what I was doing. Because like there was a time when I knew you were going to get the shot in black and white, Kevin was going to get the shot in color, and I shot that color infrared film for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And at the time I think I was the only one doing it. Stan Evans did it really well a little while later, and I think Bob Plum did some as well. But I shot with all that stuff because I could. It didn't have anything to do with I wasn't trying to be extra creative. I'm just like, I get to be extra creative.
I get to be extra creative.
Yeah, because nobody was counting on me to get the shot. And occasionally I got the shot. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
But then speaking of art directors and then being able to direct editorially, you got to have the opportunity to build a new publication.
Yeah. Well, not a new one. It had existed. I mean, Jeff Baker, Mark Sullivan, Chief, all the guys from Snowboarder kind of went and started. Maybe Chief wasn't part of that, but they all started Snowboard Mag. By this time, I worked for Burton for a few years, and I got a phone call from Jeff Baker saying, "Hey, I'm leaving the magazine. Do you want to talk to the owner of the magazine?" I think Cale Gray was selling ads for them, so Cale connected me with the owner, Bradford Fayfield. He started Free Skier magazine when he was in or after he got out of college at CU Boulder, and he was, which was a revolutionary thing in skiing. So, and then he had purchased it from Jeff and Mike Basher and all these guys that had made Snowboard Mag. And they offered me the chance to be the photo editor and editor-in-chief and publisher, actually, of Snowboard Mag. And it meant a move to Boulder, which at the time I was kind of splitting my time between Vancouver, BC, and Portland. I had sold my house in Portland, but my girlfriend lived in Vancouver, BC.
Sarah?
Yep, Sarah, and who shot that photo that I don't know if anyone sees, but I can.
You can see the photo on YouTube if you're listening to this on any of our other platforms.
So she and I decided we'd move to Boulder and work at the magazine. And I was definitely looking for an outlet like that where I could just go back into, I always felt like that I managed people well. And so I wanted to get back to doing that. I wanted to still be able to be creative, but I didn't want to be gone as often. And that was the thing that kind of reeled me back in. Because, there was some of those days being a freelancer or working for a big corporation as a photographer, it's like sometimes I was gone 300 plus days a year. And that's like, it's great, but like it's being a 1,000,000-mile flyer on United isn't awesome. It's awesome when you're in the air because they give you an upgrade and stuff, but it's like, it really makes you like look at like, I've been spending way too much time on these things that scared the shit out of me. I've been afraid on every single flight I've ever gotten on, and I've flown a lot.
Damn.
So
that's a whole essay in itself. The germ bus.
So that was one of the things. I was like, this gets me out of being gone all the time. So, but it still gives me an outlet to do the thing that I want to do. So, but yeah, it was fantastic. Like, I totally enjoyed all my time there, and I think that the mag looked great when I was there. It looked great when I left. I liked it before I was there too. So
it's still going. T-Bird was in the other day, and it's still going. And so I want to jump ahead a little bit in time, in the time scale here, and then talk about one of the most hated retail brands in action sports.
Do it. I work at Zumiez now. Yeah, I'm a senior marketing director at Zumiez. And it's funny to say hated, because it's hated. Like some people hate it, but it's like when I left the mag, I was just doing bits and pieces of work here and there, do like a little job for Nike SB, then do a little job for like, I even got like a Nike golf job at one point, just doing some other golf stuff. But nothing too major. Shot some toy packaging, little just weird stuff. I was still, as far as the snow and skate stuff goes, I was like doing a bunch of stuff with Gatorade and Mountain Dew. So that actually kept the bills paid. But again, that was like taking me out of the house for a long, long time. And we had, young, at the time, only one young kid at home. I didn't want to miss out on that. I wanted to be home all the time. So, I was looking for jobs in the Northwest, and Zumiez was on that list because it's in the Northwest. And the funny thing is that when I was offered the job, I talked to Jim Thiebaud at Deluxe, and he told me this little tidbit that sticks with me. He was like, if Zumiez decided to stop selling skateboards tomorrow, we wouldn't go out of business. We would change drastically how we do business, but we would still be in business. He's like, there's a lot that Zumiez does for the industry that goes unseen by a lot of the consumers or maybe the shit talkers. And I also think that kind of stuff is left over from like a previous generation. I think there's a whole lot less of, Zumiez isn't making skate shops go out of business. Skate shop owners are making skate shops go out of business. There's more bad skate shop owners than there are Zumiez. And also, fucking direct to consumer crushes people way more than any Zumiez store ever has opening up in a store. Mm-hmm. So we can blame direct to consumer now. So everyone who sells online is now Zumiez.
There's always those battles, and early on, with the direct to consumer and who was going to get to sell and how important is retail. And I mean, these conversations still go on today. Yeah. But again, what we saw during the pandemic was that Zumiez was bringing in $1 billion. Like they were seeing the brunt of the upside of what the pandemic had to offer as one of those companies that was able to flourish. And then numbers today aren't as good as what they were during the pandemic, but they don't suck. But
2 months before the pandemic hit, we reached $1 billion.
$1 billion.
And it was, but I mean, the thing is that at that time, over the course of 2019, skateboarding was growing. We were seeing like hard goods sales. This wasn't like just t-shirt sales. Hard goods sales were going up and up and up. And then COVID hit. And one of the things that kept us from being harmed during this is we didn't lay off a ton of employees. Any full-time employee, so our CEO looked at it and said, listen, it's whatever the date was, March 17th or whatever, because Seattle shut down before anybody. I think my kid's school district, 8 of the first 12 deaths of COVID happened in his school district at an old folks home. So they shut his school district down first. And that was like middle of March, I guess.
Right.
So we get told that we're going to shut down. We're going to figure some things out. And our CEO looked at it and said, we have a timeline that looks like if we can open by June X, if we can have this many stores open by June, we'll be okay. So we're not going to lay off any employees. And then as certain states started to allow people to go back to work, this is another thing about Zumiez is that we don't send everything from one central distribution center. We send things from our stores. So as we were having store managers, like teams of 2 and the same teams of 2, because that was their bubble, working together in stores to send out online orders. So we didn't lay anyone off. We didn't, we laid off hourly employees. There was no hours for them, but it was like, there was no layoffs and we just kept people employed and we were able to fulfill orders. And as every state started to roll out, we were more prepared to be back in business. And that actually just comes from good leadership. It doesn't have anything to do with like us being Zumiez. It just has to do with like we have a great CEO who saw and a team of people around him that saw what we could get away with. So like Atlanta and Montana opened before most other places. It was like Atlanta specifically because the rest of Georgia I think was still closed. We've got like we've got 8 or 9 stores in Atlanta. They all opened fully to the public. The rest of the malls opened too. And then I'm getting phone calls from people at Vans going like, "Hey, how'd you guys open your stores? We don't even know where the keys to our stores are." We fired our manager. We don't even know where the key to the store is. And that was the problem, because everyone was so reactionary that they were just like, all right, yeah, we can't perform retail duties because we just don't know how to do all of this. And that could have been like somebody speaking out of turn at Vans. I don't know. But, but it was just one example of like, because a lot of stores just didn't open up, even though they were allowed to. Luckily, we had stores that were lightly staffed, but staffed. So, we could, all we had to do was, instead of them coming through the back door and sitting in there and packaging stuff up all day, all they do is roll the gates up and, sell like the way that they sell. So, I think that was one of the reasons. Plus, people had a lot of discretionary income, and they were getting stimulus checks and they were doing other things. We probably sold more pairs of sweatpants during that time than we did T-shirts. So it was like that's part of the growth. Everyone wanted sweatpants with pockets during COVID.
Damn, the good days. Oh man, bring it back. Not. But again, the other thing at Zumiez that's always been interesting is one of the longest running campaigns. And if you're looking on our YouTube right now, I'm showing this beat up old couch.
That's couch.
And it is, can you just give us some insights to the success of that campaign?
That's couch. It's a living, breathing entity.
Tell us more.
When couch is there, it's always a good party.
Couch.
Yeah.
It's like a person.
Yeah. Couch is couch. Yeah. It's good. If I explained it any other way, my friend Steph would kill me. She's responsible for a lot of Couch's personality. And yeah, Couch does great shit.
But I'd see that they're able to transcend, again, going out to the retail stores to do the promo. But again, looks like even now with the latest stuff here, I got this homies promo that you guys did. You're able to cross into different markets and using this thread of a personality couch. Picturing like Pee Wee Herman right now with Couchy.
That's the thing. Couch is like, the DGA guys did their version of Couch, which was like a lot more like obviously in the streets. They put a little bit of graffiti on there, made it look like a purple brick wall. We've had like Mark Gonzalez as customized a couch, Nora Vasconcelos as customized couches. Czarface, this like artist creative guy from New York, has done a couple. We've had a bunch of different people like come and just do customized couches at different places. We used to throw what we called couch parties. Kind of backed off of them a little bit in more recent years, but couch is great.
Well, it seemed like that was one of the strategies too with having in-store shops, is having a place for kids to come play video games, hang out, and have a central place to be, a skateboarder, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's also for a place for people to make a connection. It's like the internet's a great place to buy things if all you're looking for is convenience. But if you're looking for a safe place to hang out and that sort of thing, there's a lot to be said for the conversations that can be had inside the walls of a store. I've always liked brick and mortar stores because it does create that sense of community. And I'm not trying to defend the mall and say that's a place, arguably it killed Main Street America, the mall did. But it's a place where people feel comfortable going, like their mom's been taking them there or whatever. So there's like, I made some friends with some people at the local Zumiez. Plus, it's like the place where you can go, and if you're looking to buy a pair of shoes, the internet offering you 3 extra pairs of socks is not the same as someone going like, it'd look dope with these shoes, these socks.
Right.
Or that shirt and those pants. Our employees are some of the best trained employees out there. They can talk you into some new pants.
I'm an easy sell.
Yeah.
For sure.
I want to go backward just a second, just because talking about Zumiez is and I don't want to sound like I'm just chugging Kool-Aid over here, but it's really like when Tom started Zumiez as a T-shirt store. And in the 80s, the coolest T-shirts...
Above the belt
was what it was called.
Yeah.
And not to be confused with Below the Belt in Canada, which is a pants store.
Interesting.
Weird.
Thank you for sharing.
But Above the Belt was a T-shirt store. And some of the coolest T-shirts that were being made were made by like Town & Country, Vision Streetwear, Powell Peralta. And he's like, how do I get all these cool shirts in my shop? Oh, I'm just going to call and order them from these companies. Oh, what? This catalog has all these other things in it, skateboards, all this other stuff. so he's like, you know what separates me from everyone else? Like, because at the time, Nordstrom was selling GNS shirts and not Powell Peralta, but they were selling all the like surf brands and skate brands and whatever they could get their hands on. And so he was just like, well, what separates me from everyone else? I'm going to have a skate shop in my store. And it might not always be the thing that drives money, but it is something that's like, it's a solid cornerstone of the business. And he's been doing it forever. There's other brick and mortar shops that have been around as long as him, but it's not some new thing where it's like, oh, you know what I think we can cash in on? The skate craze.
Well, we knew too. I remember there was times when people wouldn't sell their brand to Zumiez because it's too high end. But then there's a lot of regions of the country that just don't have a dedicated skate shop, and you can go to a Zumiez and get your skate on and get all the gear. And so, perfect timing, great leadership. And speaking of leadership, again, as we're trying to come down to a close here, again, what advice could you give to some young person coming up the ranks, wanting to pursue a marketing director job at a Zumiez or some kind of action sports brand?
I think it's just be nice to everybody. If you're not, you might end up pissing off the wrong person who's going to remember 15 years down the road that you bummed them out, and they're in a position to help you out. I think it's one of those things. It's like, it's like do everything for the common good and try to treat people the way you want to be treated. I think it's basic. You don't want to have enemies, and especially in a tight little thing like this, you don't want to be the bad guy.
Right. I'll take that for $1. Where can we find you?
Sitting right here on this chair for the next little while,
making it look good.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm around. I don't know. Am I trying to plug my Instagram and stuff? I don't want to do that.
That's fine.
I'm not trying to let all these people see pictures of my kids playing around and going to hockey practice.
I'm sure they're going to research it because it was pretty easy to find. Actually, there's other Chris Owen photographer guy that sucks up the interwebs. I got one of his checks once. That's all right too.
Yeah. It was a bad one. I was just like, it was from Billabong, and they owed me like $2,000, and I got this check for $450. And I was like, oh, whoa, what the fuck here, guys? And they're like, oh yeah, they're like, this is the photo, and they sent it, and I'm like, no, I go, this is somebody surfing in Waikiki, man. I don't do that. I don't shoot that. I go, I shot a photo of Tara Nikitas. Has nothing to do with this.
Funny.
Yeah. So So actually, he and I, we started talking a lot, and because we had to send each other our mail when we got the wrong stuff. Sometimes I'd get his photos sent back to my house, and I'd send them to him. Yeah.
So random.
Yeah. It's also the Shermanator from American Pie is also Chris Owen. So,
that comes up too, right?
Yeah. So
not the same guy.
No, it's good. It's good to not be that Googleable.
Or you could be hiding in the Google with the extra name.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, they can find you. We're going to find you if they need to. Perfect. Always a pleasure, Chris Owen.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
It's good. Hopefully I didn't sweat it up too much.
No, I think we're good.